Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have two stories for you from the HOA subreddit. This story comes to us from HICCTL, How to Get Rid of an HOA. A good friend of mine has about 4 years ago inherited the house of his grandparents. He decided to live there for the time being till he has decided what to do with the house. He grew up in it, so he did not really want to sell it. Not even a week after he moved in, he got a visit from a neighborhood committee. They said they are the 3 board members of the HOA and are here so he can sign his membership papers. They were extremely nosy and rude. For example, one tried to get into the garage without so much as asking. When he stopped him and asked him where he wanted to go, he had the audacity to say, "I need to check your garage. If everything there is in order, I have a right to do this bi-weekly, and denying me access is an offense that will cost a fine." He then had enough of their audacity and kicked them out of the house. While doing so, one of the board members shoved some papers into his face and told him he needed to sign this right now. He would live there a week already, and these papers had to be signed before moving in. Once they were gone, he took a look at the papers. They were effing ridiculous and gave the HOA rights that were simply un-effing real. They had, for example, a right to visit your home bi-weekly and check things like that you do not use the garage for storage, don't have gasoline in containers in your garage, same goes for gas. You had to mow your lawn every week, snow had to be shoveled every 2 hours when it snowed, starting at 5 o'clock in the morning. You could not park more than 1 car on your grounds except inside the garage, and a ton of other BS. A few days later, they came back and asked him why he did not sign the papers yet. They also wanted to check the garage again. This time, he would not even let them in and told them he would never become a member of their stupid club. To them, that meant war. Within a week, they had sent him fines north of $1,000. Some of them were for denying them access to his home, each worth $250. My friend simply did not take them serious and used their stupid letters to help fire his grill. Then came the day where they went extremely too far. He came back and one of the board members had broken into his garage, stood in it, and was writing things down on his notepad. But that was not even the worst part. He had 2 wonderful oak trees in the front of his house. They had been planted by his great-grandparents when they were newlyweds and moved into the house. The HOA was in the process of taking them down. They had called a professional crew for this. One was already so damaged, basically all twigs were already down, it was just a stump that was left. The other one they had just started with. He effing lost it. He told the tree crew to stop right the F now and explained to them that he was the owner and what they did was highly illegal. They had no idea, since the board member claimed these trees were in violation of the rules, since supposedly too many leaves went to the neighbor's garden. He had told them that there was no legal reason to put them down, but the board member claimed I had given my okay, because the trees were in violation of the rules of the HOA. He looked it up later. They actually had a bylaw that if a garden produces more than 1 40-liter sack of leaves within 2 weeks, the garden owner needs to take down the offending trees within 2 weeks. He told them he would overlook them trespassing if they would be witnesses in court for him. Then he called the cops on the board members for trespassing, breaking and entering. They actually had used a bolt cutter to get into the garage. He had it always closed with a big effing bike lock after they had tried to get in twice before. The trial must have been glorious. Not only did they have to repay him for the lock and the tree, which was worth a crap ton of money, north of $50,000 if I remember right, plus damages for the second tree. He had a professional tree person look after it, so all the damage healed properly, which alone cost nearly $1,000. But these idiots actually thought the trial would have been unfair and tried to fight it, which probably cost them an additional $10,000 to $15,000 in lawyers and court costs. All in all, this trial must have cost them over $120,000. Then he went to civil court and sued them for emotional damage. He told them how much these trees meant to him, since his great-grandparents had planted them, with seeds from the home country. He really laid it on as thick as he could. Plus, he felt threatened by the HOA and can hardly sleep because he always fears they try to get into his house. The court actually bought it and gave him $500,000 plus the cost for a state-of-the-art alarm system so he can feel safe again in his own home. So put all together, he cost the HOA nearly $750,000. They had to file for bankruptcy and get a person to check the books so my friend would get his money. The best is for last. The mediator found out that these three pricks had been defrauding the HOA for well over 10 years and were giving out as many fines as they possibly could so they could use it to bolster their income. All three had to sell their houses so they could pay out my friend. Now, he is for most people one of the favorite people living there, and he constantly gets invited over for grilling and whatnot. You see, most people never wanted the HOA in the first place, but the board member practically forced them to sign the contract, claiming it would not be optional, and if they did not sign before moving in, it would be a $500 fine. Only 6 of the over 50 members actually wanted this HOA, and people think they did get part of the action as reward for spying out their neighbors to find violations. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a deleted account. It says, "God, I effing hate HOAs. How do they even start to get away with all this stuff? Not that they got away this time, but how many people did they F over before then?" OP responded to this comment and said, "Because you basically sign away your rights when you become a member. Plus, many things they do are actually illegal, especially the fines, how high they are, and getting them without a warning before for ridiculous crap, or even crap that is not your fault. But only a few people go to court over a $200 fine, since just an hour with a good lawyer costs already so much." And OP, this is where you are completely right. Most people won't fight a fine that isn't really worth fighting because they would spend a lot more on the lawyer than the fine itself. And that allows HOAs like this to get away with what they're doing. Basically, if there's no consequences to their actions of giving out fines that really shouldn't be given out, they're just going to keep on doing it because they know they can get away with it. One thing to remember though is that if you go after an HOA like this because they've been giving you fines that are not legitimate and you win, you will likely get your court costs paid by the HOA, plus any damages owed to you in the process as well. As always though, I'm not a lawyer, this is not legal advice, so make sure you consult with a lawyer if you have a problem with an HOA. This story comes to us from a deleted account. HOA vandalizes father's truck, gets immediate justice. I originally posted this on r/malicious compliance, but they removed it for some reason. As far as I know, it didn't violate any rules. Please note, I'm not complaining about the HOA, and this is merely a story of what happened to my father and I when I was living there. I'll paste it below. This happened a few years back. Our HOA has always been known to be sneaky and to flat out give false accusations on homeowners, especially in this day with security cameras, and we can pretty easily spot out who the investigators are. Most recently, a homeowner was told she was supposed to get approval before she started reshingling her roof. The thing is, her roof hasn't been reshingled in 10 years, and she had no plans to do it, things like that. Call it just a mistake, call it malicious. Well, a few years ago, we had our time to shine. It was a simple morning. I was still temporarily living with my father at the time. Well, one morning, we decided to go out to get groceries, when we found that his pickup truck had been smashed into. Nothing was taken, it was just smashed into. In fact, I still have pictures from that day just before the cops arrived. Ooh. Oh. Cops arrive, they do some investigating, and found that a rock inside the truck was from a house down the street. Unfortunately, they couldn't get them to admit to the crime, nor could they prove it was even them. Understandable, criminals will grab things that they find, but it was suspicious. The rock, I should say, was a special kind of rock that no one else in the neighborhood had. Some round polish type, very unique. After this incident, I installed a security camera on his house. Well, not 2 days later, we get an HOA violation for a vehicle eyesore that needs to be removed, just 2 days later. I'm confused how such a letter could have been written up so fast, but I started to suspect foul play. One day, we were home and had a knock at the door. The HOA actually called a code inspection officer. The week hadn't even been over yet, so the parts to fix the truck weren't delivered yet. We weren't paying expedited shipping for damages we didn't cause. And the truck was so old, insurance would probably just total it. The truck is sentimental to him, so he wasn't going to get rid of it. It still ran great. Code inspection tells my father that vehicles which do not run need to be removed. They both stop talking and take a second, and both almost say at the same time, "Don't I know you?" Turns out the code inspection officer went to the same church as my father, and they knew each other. This isn't the malicious compliance yet. We are only just beginning. The officer tells my father if he can show the truck starts, he's going to write it up as being in code. My father starts the truck just fine as the engine isn't damaged. He tells him to go on with his day and to have a good one. At this point, we are furious because we're starting to suspect the HOA may have did this, as there's no way they could have possibly known so fast. Unfortunately, our turn of the street had no neighbors with security cameras until I installed one on our house, so it caught nothing specific to our incident. Down the street, these people supposedly broke into a car as well, but the camera on their house was unable to see anything. Darn. Here's where the fun begins. Fast forward a couple months after nothing happened, I decided to install a new dash cam in my car. I found a good one that uses very little power off the battery and can activate if there's any bumps to the car, even if the car is off. It just needs to be wired straight to the battery for this. It's a thinkware. A few days later, we got a violation notice for our mailbox being crooked. It wasn't crooked much, but I do remember it recently having an angle. Odd, I could just fix it, but my car was aiming straight at the mailbox. I'm thinking, no, this couldn't be possible. It only records if there's a bump. I take out the memory card, and apparently I either didn't configure it correctly, but it was recording the whole time. It never went into sleep mode. I watched as the investigator walks up to the mailbox and pushes it crooked, then writes down on his tablet his findings and takes a picture for records. I'm appalled at what I see. I have the proof I needed. Now for the malicious compliance, they wanted us to come to the board meeting and present what is going on at our address. We haven't told them yet that we had the pictures, but to summarize real fast how our HOA works, the board hires an outside company to do the grunt work. Let's call it Bentry Management. We go to the meeting and sit down. Bentry Management is the one in control of our account, and I swear to you she looked like a Karen, so the name fits her. As time goes by in the meeting, we get to discuss what is happening at our house. We present the timelines and tell them about the truck being smashed, and just 2 days later, we get a letter. We ask what dates the investigator was out for that time. Karen refuses to answer it. She argues ignorantly that we should keep better care of our stuff, as if it was our fault. Then comes the mailbox incident. We tell her that we have reasons to believe that the investigator is the one that is causing damages to our property and is harassing us. Karen denies this and says that is impossible and that she knows him personally. "Oh, is that so?" I ask. She says, "Yes, why?" I then pull out my laptop out of my book bag that I had been hiding, open it up to the video file already loaded, and show it to the entire board. "Enter Exhibit A," I said out loud, and played the video. Karen's face is bright red. She says that is not her investigator. I then also pulled out the letter about the mailbox, which was complete with date. It matches the cooked on timestamp on the video. She still tries to claim it's not them. "No, it's a coincidence, I'm sorry, but you have a vandal, and it's not us." "It's not? I let the video play, knowing she's falling into a pit hard right now. As the man walks toward my car, you can plain as day see Bentry Management on his shirt. She's no longer red now, she's white as a ghost. The board looks over at her and asks what she has to say about this. Karen is silent and has nothing except a few noises which I assume was her brain trying to comprehend what just happened. I then proceed to bring up a previous case, which I happen to remember before we left for the meeting, where we had a grass violation beside our house. Now, this area they were claiming was actually not visible from the sidewalk due to the house shape. I asked point blank, has at any time your investigators walked on our property illegally trespassing? Knowing as per their rules, they aren't allowed to do that. Karen is visibly shaking now and mutters out, "No, of course not," with her head down, unable to maintain eye contact with me. She probably feels that I have more evidence, but unfortunately, I didn't. So I ask again. She asks, why? Our neighbor, whom are lawyers, literally next door to us where the side of this wall was, stands up and says, "Actually, that's not true. I have witnessed one of your investigators go between our houses and poke around the trash bins." Bingo. I didn't even realize she had this information. I couldn't have asked for better timing. Karen at this point just starts arguing with our neighbors about no proof. The board proceeds to apologize for the incident, and they're going to discuss what is going to happen in the future about this. At that point, the meeting is over. A month passes and we get a letter that a new person will be in charge for Bentry management and new investigators. She was fired that night. Since she was fired, my father tells me we only get the occasional blip of errors, but they correct it immediately and don't bother us really anymore. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from Wilda Beastest. It says, "Correct me if I'm wrong, but tampering with a mailbox in any way is a federal crime. Should have also contacted your local postal inspector. It put a stop to my HOA from going through my mail real effing quick." Yes, OP, you are correct on that one, because tampering with anybody's mail, including just opening their mailbox without authorization, is a federal crime. I feel like you could have done more in this case. You could have had that quote-unquote inspector federally charged for tampering with your mailbox. Then we need to look at why were they doing this to you in the first place? And I think it's because that company was collecting a fee from the HOA for every violation that they reported. So I'm assuming that OP's property wouldn't be the only one that inspector was hitting. They were out there creating fees for themselves. There's a lot more illegal activity going on here than I think OP might have realized. Check out both OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Let me tell you, this train outside, it's making it really hard to record.